Hi, welcome to the Christian Indie Writers Podcast, where we inform, encourage, and support Christian indie writers on their journey toward publication. I'm Christina Catane, and I write in multiple genres, including Christian dystopian fiction.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Carl Tong, and I write historical Christian romance.
I'm Rhonda Hagerman, and I write fiction and nonfiction.
I'm Jamie Hirschberger. I write short fiction under the pen name J.R. Nichols.
Okay, and if you like our podcast, don't forget to subscribe and like us, and so you'll never miss an episode. And we always like to start out with a little section we call What's Up. It's where we check in with each other, see what's going on in our lives. So let's start with, I'm going to start with Jamie because she's first in my little row of faces down here.
Well, what's up with me? Everything just seems to be clicking along. Personally, we're just rocking and rolling, trying to adjust to life in Florida, where it's like 80 degrees in February. Totally not used to that. Not complaining. It's it's just an adjustment. It's just a different thing. Really enjoying the sunshine, though. So can't complain. What about you, Rhonda? What's up with you?
Well, let's see. My family went skiing this year. I bought everybody a gift certificate so that we've got, my family's a skiing family, but my children, their significant others, spouse or fiance or whatever, they do not ski. So it was a chance for us to all go out together and support each other and have a lot of fun. And it was so much fun. And hopefully we'll do it again a few more times before the season's over.
Rhonda, you're not hiding a leg in a cast under the desk, are you?
Oh, not today. I was so careful because I've done the broken leg thing and I was super careful.
Did you get to use your tiny skis? Didn't you say you had some tiny skis?
Yes, I did. And they didn't even make those the last time I skied. And they were so much fun. But you can get so much speed going on those.
Oh.
But and I was able to use my old roller skating skills on them and ice skating. So I had a few sports going on in my head at the time. So
fun.
It was a lot of fun.
That is a lot. That sounds like a lot of fun.
My legs are killing me, though. Only for muscles. How about you, Jen?
Oh, the angels are singing when it's my turn. So amazing. Well, I did not go skiing, but just a little quick story. I did break my foot on a ski weekend at the chaperone's house before we even left town.
Oh, no!
But I was able to tell everybody that I broke my foot on a ski weekend. So anyway, that was years ago. And I was a chaperone too. So it wasn't like it wasn't even cool. I was just such a loser. I'm so not coordinated. I've had a very interesting week. Last week was my release, and last Thursday was my party, and it was riddled with tech issues. And I got to thank the ladies. You guys were all so gracious and trying to help me out, trying to figure out how to do it. And I ended up doing the live release party by myself with you ladies in the chat, and I could not have done it without you. So thank you, girls. I really appreciate that. Tonight is my the book club party, which Jamie and we got it working last night. We don't know why it wouldn't work last week to have both of us on the Facebook Live. We did exactly the same thing last night and it worked. So we'll see what happens tonight. But yeah, so that's what I got going on. Still kind of in the middle of release things, but tonight the book club is kind of like the end of the release week, and then everything kind of settles down. So that's what I've been up to. What about you, Bambina?
Well, nothing really going on around here. Just kind of, daily grind kind of stuff. And my mom and her brother are in Hawaii right now in twin amigos. You know those little carts?
Yeah.
So my cousins and two of my cousins went with them with their husbands, and they were in Hawaii. So I'm thinking about writing some little short stories about the misadventures of the Dos Amigos. So we'll see how that goes.
I think just hearing you talk right now, I also got an idea for an amigo story. Maybe we should both write our stories and then compare with each other. That would be fun.
Okay.
Maybe that should be our writing prompt for next week. We should have
Yeah, I could I want to make them a little book that I publish just for them.
Oh, how wonderful. That'd be really nice.
Mostly because the title I came up with for their trips to Hawaii is would not fall in the Christian genre. Moving on.
So,
Well,
Tina, was that inspired by our podcast episode of writing gifts?
Maybe. I haven't thought about it till now, but possibly.
Yeah, if you guys haven't seen that episode, those of you who are watching, you should scroll on back through time. Woo!
But not until you're done watching this one.
Right. You got to watch this one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we have a little bit of a serious topic to discuss, a timely topic. And I don't know how many of you out there in writing land have heard about this scandal that's going on right now. Hashtag copy paste Chris. But that is what we're going to discuss today. So I am going to let Jen start us off because she has all the info.
Yeah, and it's a romance-specific issue in this particular case. So I think she is a voice of authority there.
Yeah.
Right. Well, thank you. Yeah. So it is about some romance authors, which is how I noticed it because there are many that I follow on Twitter and they follow me back. A lot who are not Christian. So these authors are not Christian authors. We are not endorsing their books. I've not read their books because they're more steamy romance. But there's the writing of romance is very similar. So anywho, there's been a hashtag floating around for the past couple of days, frantically floating around, that was hashtag copy paste Chris, CRIS. And what it is there is an author that, a Brazilian author that entered one of her books into the Ritas, which is a romance authors contest, a huge part of the Romance Writers of America. And another reader, actually, I thought it was the Ritas that figured it out, but another reader contacted the first author, Courtney Milan, who is a famous romance author, and said, hey, this author has stolen complete passages from you. And as the story has progressed, there are several. The list just keeps growing of authors that this woman's books have been completely taken from. And you can go online, you can look it up, and you can see the comparisons. It is clearly plagiarism. The first reaction from the Brazilian author was, what? No, I love these authors. I would never do that. And then the next reaction was, this must be from passages that I got from a ghostwriter that I hired. So this is really where we as the Christian indie writers kind of want to pick this story up, because we could talk a lot about plagiarism, and I don't think anybody would argue with us that plagiarism is good or bad. I think that we always say, oh no, totally bad. But what is good and what is bad? So we got talking about it last night. Jamie and Tina and I and Rhonda joined us a little bit later about, as Christian authors, where do we draw the line? And I have kind of a strong stance about ghostwriters. And I think that's where we wanted to pick up. Am I right, ladies?
Yeah, I think that there was a little bit of a disagreement about pay for writing. There's a hardline stance of you should always do all of your own writing. And then there is the position that it's okay to hire somebody to do your writing as long as you credit them. And then there's the stance that you can hire someone to completely write a story for you and not credit them as long as they're okay with it and you're okay with it. If they're willing to take $300 for, the first 50,000 words of a novel or whatever, then that's two people who are making an agreement, and that's fine. So it was just interesting as the four of us were having conversation where everybody fell on that.
Right. So it's not illegal to have a ghostwriter. Let's state that right up front. You can hire somebody to write words for you, and you can put your name on that, and that's not illegal. So the line is it immoral?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I guess I'll just share how I feel.
Well, maybe Tina should share how she feels about it first.
Okay.
Well, I was just going to say, I have experience being a ghostwriter. I have never hired anyone to ghostwrite for me, but I have been a ghostwriter. The first time was for a friend. It wasn't a paid thing. She wanted to nominate her father for an award at her church, and she just did not have the skill to write well. And so she gave me what she wanted to say, and I wrote it for her, and he won. So I must be pretty good.
Yay!
It was totally his own merits that won him that award. It's not my writing, but and then I was working as a freelancer with a particular company, and I did sign a contract with somebody that to write a 5,000 word beginning of a novel for them. And in the contract, it said that I understood that my name would not be on the final product. But I decided never to do that again, not because I thought there was anything wrong with it per se at the time, but because it was too painful to give away my baby and then not have any control over where it was going to go or what was going to happen to it. So I decided to stick with writing about garage floor oil mats and shoe cabinets and stuff that I didn't care about.
Baby car seats.
So I just feel like, as an author, I feel like if I'm going to be a writer, then I need to do the writing, especially fiction. If it's a fictional book, I kind of feel like it's dishonest to hire a ghostwriter and then put your name on it. Where I differ is if somebody has a story to tell, like an autobiography or a memoir, and they don't have writing skills, but their story needs to be told, then to hire a writer to do that for you, I feel is a good choice. But I don't necessarily know that would be considered a ghostwriter. I think most memoirs like that, you would give credit to the actual writer of the story. But that's where I fall on the spectrum.
I think it's good to make that clarification. I think we should probably stop there for a second and talk about that.
All right, I have something to say then.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so I was a content writer like Tina was, and I agree that they're paying you to write something because they don't want the time to do it. So fiction and nonfiction, I think they're completely separate issues. And the whole autobiography, you're saying that this is your story, but you're hiring someone to do it. I don't think that's the same issue at all. Now, if you try to pass it off as I wrote all these beautiful flowing words, that'd be something different. But fiction, I don't think that's dishonest. I mean, I don't think that should be illegal or whatever, but you obviously can do it dishonestly. Now, I'm not talking about ghostwriting and stealing what you say you've written, but if someone is willing to put in all the publicity and the time and effort to get the book sold, and that includes paying someone to actually write the book, if that's what they want to do, then it's honestly not dishonest. Moral, maybe that's a different category, but I have read books before, fiction books that were ghostwritten before, but if I liked it, I actually went and found the other books that the ghostwriter wrote and didn't bother really picking up the original author's books, because if they're not going to write them, I have no idea what the quality is going to be. But if I enjoyed the original book that I wrote, I would try to find out if the ghostwriter had written anything else.
How do you know who the ghostwriter was?
I was just going to ask that, because isn't there a really huge writer, I don't remember which one, where all of his stuff is ghostwritten now?
Yeah, he died.
He died?
Yes, he died. And is it Jack Ryan was the main character?
I don't know about him, but there are a number of Ian Fleming books written under his name. And I am drawing a blank on who the ghostwriter is that wrote the ones posthumously. But that would be one example.
Yeah. This guy wrote
are you sure? Before you say that, are you sure? Because I can find nothing to support that the author you're talking about, Tina, is the one. And I don't want us to say something that's inaccurate.
I'm not sure who the author is, but I know that he wrote action mystery kind of things, and they were political. I don't know what the word is. And the original author died, and there was such a huge fan base for the main character, and I don't remember who the author was or what the main character's name was. But they have had 2 or 3 writers come in as that writer.
I might argue that that's a little different because that's a decision a publisher or someone else is making. It's not the author themselves, you know, farming out their work. I may be mistaken. I just thought that I had heard from one of you ladies, in fact, that, oh yeah, so-and-so's books are all written by other people now. He tells them what to write and then they compile it together into a Franken book or something.
All right, we need to back up because this is what I had started to say before Rhonda started talking. We need to define what ghostwriting is. I think that's why the disconnect in our conversation right now, because who you're talking about is not used ghostwriters. He puts the people's name on the cover as well. His name is huge, and then their name is down here. And we're talking about the person that Tina took the master class with. James Patterson. So James Patterson does very little writing himself. I don't know what percentage. I don't really care. But because I don't really, I mean, I read him at the very beginning when it was just him. And then, you know, but it'll say James Patterson and then someone else's little name down at the bottom. So that's not ghostwriting.
No, it's
so
not.
I don't have issues with that. If somebody wants a memoir, like let's say, I don't know, Tom Brady wants to, you know, write his story, but he's a busy dude. It's not his thing, you know, whatever. And he has someone help him, or even do like, if that person's name is on the book as well, no matter how little it is, that's not ghostwriting. Ghostwriting is literally what it would sound like. You don't know who the person is. They get zero credit. And it would present as if I hired a ghostwriter, the book would say Jennifer Carl Tong, and no one would have any clue that I didn't write what is within those pages. That's the issue I have as a Christian author. Now, is it illegal to do that? No. I can legally go out and hire somebody to write words for me, and I can put them in my book, completely legal. There's nothing wrong with that, unless those words are stolen, which is what this lady is facing right now. But as a Christian author, this is why I wanted to bring this up within our realm of our podcast. As a Christian author, is it right to do that? Because if I'm representing myself as the author, whether or not the world says it's okay to do this, is it okay as a Christian author to say, this is my work, when it really isn't? And this is where I draw the line, and why I say that I do not believe that ghostwriting is right. Even if it's a memoir situation, put my name on the cover. Whoever wrote this needs to somewhere be listed as one of the writers, because it's perfectly okay for someone not to have the skill set to write a book and still have a story within them, but you give the credit to who did the actual writing or the majority of the writing or whatever, no matter how famous you are. Like, because really, books like written by like Tom Brady or like famous stars like Madonna or whatever are going to be sold because of the big name, but they would never have been written without the person that's written it. So their name has to be on there too. That's where I stand on this. We don't have to agree on this, but I just want to say that. So that's the definition. A ghostwriter is you do not know who wrote it. If their name is on the cover, it's not considered ghostwriting. It's considered co-writing. I think there's a couple other terms for it. But you don't really know you don't know the extent of how much interaction they had with the writing, but probably most of it. Let's just be honest.
I kind of tend to, as I listen to you speak, fall more into the realm of where Tina's position is, because I am a person who firmly believes if two people agree to an arrangement, that's between those two people. And I don't think that there's anything immoral about presenting a work as your own if the other person is willing to sign over there. If you guys agree that, hey, this is going to be all under my name and you're not going to have anything to do with it, I will pay you $5,000 instead of $500 to not have to put your name anywhere on it. And Tina is saying that for fiction, she would take umbrage to that, because I think in her mind, that is saying that the story, the creative, the heart of the story was invented in your brain, as opposed to someone just chronicling events that happened. This happened, this happened, this happened, and you get no credit for it as the writer, because it's not about a spark of creativity. It's just about putting words in an order that's not going to be objectionable to the reader. So I think I kind of fall. Tina, am I stating your position clearly?
Yeah. Yep.
So I think that's maybe where I fall with it, because if my dad, for example, wanted to pay me $3,000, oh, Dad, if you're listening, anyway, to
but you might want to go up on that number though.
to write down all of the stories that he likes to tell, you know, to everyone who gathers around. They're his stories. I'm just putting them in a way that's going to be like, I would feel a little bit like the Christian thing to do would be to not take credit for his stories. Like, I'm just performing a task and being compensated, and I don't need, and I think maybe that's part of it is like, where does it, do you need credit, quote unquote, for doing something like that for a person? So I guess you could look at it as you're kind of doing a service to the person and helping them. I don't know, makes the plot thicken a little bit.
All right, so now we've been talking a lot about being on the side of the writer, the ghostwriter. Let's flip it over, and now let's look at it from the perspective of somebody who might be considering hiring a ghostwriter, because I think this is where it can get murky as well. Because this lady who hired a ghostwriter, this is now her excuse for why there is a lot of plagiarism, is that she hired a ghostwriter, and the ghostwriter is the one that stole all this stuff from these other authors. Which, let us add, if you hire a ghostwriter, that does not absolve you from responsibility. There are plenty of online software apps and things out there that she could have plunked the whole book down into that would have told her immediately, this here is plagiarized, this is plagiarized, this is plagiarized. And she didn't do that. So it still falls on her shoulders. But let's say I am, a person that has a story that they want to tell. They think they've got this in their head, but I don't really have the skill set. And somebody says, well, why don't you hire a ghostwriter? What are some things that people should consider if that is something that they're thinking about?
Well, first of all, I say that, it's on you to make sure that what you publish under your name, whether you wrote it or not, is not plagiarized. So like you said, there's so many ways to make sure of that. Not only that, I guess I'm wondering why Amazon would not have something in their upload process to catch this kind of stuff. Like, that's the big question that came to my head when I was reading all this stuff. But anyway, really, you're taking a risk when you hire a ghostwriter, because if they are a ghostwriter, first of all, do they have anything actually published under their name?
And how do you verify? Because they're not allowed to say.
Right.
You signed a contract. You know yourself. So
yeah, the contract that I signed when I wrote that 5,000 word thing said that I couldn't even tell anybody I had written it. Like, I couldn't take credit for any of it. Like, not to tell you that I wrote the story, but like, oh, that's the story that I wrote. I can't do that. It's in the contract. So I can't use it in my portfolio or whatever. So how do you know that this person even is a good writer? So like, that would be my first thing to go. And I guess as a writer, I just feel like all the blood, sweat, and tears that we put into this process, it kind of really irks me that somebody hired a ghostwriter and then passed herself off as an industry expert and was even judging contests.
No. She wasn't judging the contest. One of the women that she stole from was...
I read an article last night that said she was a judge in one of the categories, and she had to return. They took the books from her that she was supposed to be judging.
Wow. I didn't read that part. See, this keeps getting deeper and deeper and deeper. Because one of the things I didn't share was one of the women that she did steal from, or the ghostwriter stole from, whatever, is the head of the ethics committee in the Romance Writers of America, who now has several claims filed with them against this woman that they have to act on now. So it's just like, oh my word, she had to step down because she was involved in it. So she had to step down from her duties. But
I'm sorry, Tina, I had a little bit of life happening here. Did you say you were kind of surprised that Amazon didn't have a method to catch plagiarism? Is that what you had said? Yeah,
I'm wondering, like, how can somebody upload something to Amazon and it be full of plagiarism?
I don't think it's Amazon's job.
No, I agree, because I think this is a conservative estimate, but the last I read, 450 books per day are uploaded and published live on Amazon. I don't think that it's conceivable. I mean, to expect Amazon to do something like that with that amount of volume. I think I mean, Amazon sells more than just books too. So I think to kind of put them under that kind of a pressure. I mean, we don't expect Barnes and Noble to scan every book that they have on their shelves for plagiarism. It's just
right. I just thought like the upload process of uploading a book to Kindle. They could easily stick a tool in there. That's part of the process.
Well, and if you make that assumption, it's possible that some of our listeners might also make that assumption. So if you're writing a book where you're quoting heavily, or, you know, you think that there might be a risk that you could be pegged for plagiarism, don't count on Amazon or anybody else to be sniffing that out for you. You need to make sure that you are being responsible. Rhonda, did you have more to say to that? Sorry to jump on you.
No, I completely agree with you. I don't think that it's Amazon's job to do that. I think that people need to take their own responsibility for what they read and what they write.
Well, and speaking of that, I would encourage anybody who's even remotely thinking of hiring a ghostwriter, why don't you just sit down and every day just write a little bit of this story that you feel that you have to tell. So you think you're not a writer, you have some English teacher in your history that told you whatever. I don't know what your hang up is, but try to write it anyway. And then you can simply hire someone to edit or come alongside you and help you to craft this into something that you can be proud of and say that you wrote yourself. I mean, really hiring a ghostwriter, I think for content, sort of like Rhonda and Tina did for a living, is one thing, but it's your story and your particular voice may add a certain something to the story that you would not even imagine could be there. So I would say give it a shot. Write your own first draft. Even if you keep it in a journal form to start, and then hand that over maybe to a writer who then you could say, can you help me? And they can help you with content editing or something like that.
I think it's really great advice. Just in the past couple of weeks, both Tina and I have been approached by different people to ghostwrite. This last Sunday, somebody came up to me, a dear older gentleman in my church who I adore. And he asked me, and I flat out said no. I just said no. I mean, I love this guy, but I don't have the time for that. That's not anything I'm interested in. And plus, you know, I feel kind of like what you said, like, just give it a try. You're not like, I think my fear is that there are people out there watching the show that are looking to get through this fast, because we've been there. Now, this is the whole reason why we do this podcast, is because we're all along the journey and we wish we'd had something like this when we started off. And now if we could, all of us, think back to when we started, do we think it was going to take us this long to actually get to publication? No. But now that I'm here after 3 years, 4 years, however long it's been going on, I see that I needed that time. There are no shortcuts in life. And I feel like that sometimes ghostwriting can be a shortcut. But I suggested to this man, I like your advice, Jamie, but I suggested to him, he made a comment about a blog. And I said, that's a great idea. Start writing a blog. These things that you want to put out there, start doing it in a blog form. And then that's something that you could take to a writer and they could polish up for you. They could help you put that in the right order. That's different to me than hiring a ghostwriter who's just going to do all the work for you.
And let me just tell you some of the stuff that I've been reading lately. There's something called Stream of Consciousness that people apparently are really into reading. There's what is called urban fiction. You don't necessarily have to know everything there is to know about writing properly to find an audience for your work nowadays. If you have a story to tell, write your story and then polish it up the best that you can and get it into the hands of the people that you want to share it with. And a blog is a great way to do that, Jennifer. So I'm totally on board with that idea as well.
And we have an episode. I told this gentleman this too. I said, we have an episode. Go back and find it. It's like, I think episode 3 or 4, really early on in the podcast, where Jamie and I kind of are on our own. And this is how you set up an author blog, but it could be any kind of blog for free. Very simple. Go back and watch that and try setting up a blog and just start putting writing out there. And before you know it, you will have enough content to put together a book, whether it's nonfiction or fiction. You can do it both ways. So I think it's a great idea.
I did see a service for the elderly because the community that I'm living in, there is a lot of an older population, possibly people too old to type, visual impairments, actual crippled or other obstacles to actually writing themselves. This is, I think, a really neat idea. And it's more or less a series of interviews that is done with the older person. And then the memoir is crafted. Now, again, I think that this might be a situation where it's not really a ghostwriter. If you're willing to share your byline and just say with J.R. Nichols or with Rhonda Hagerman, you might be able to find someone who can help you, capture your memories in the way that you want them told. But just be very careful and make sure that you're dealing with a reliable person. A lot of people wanted to there was an online work service. I don't really want to name it because I feel like when the woman threw out this word of this online working platform, she felt like she was giving herself a get out of jail free card, because everybody knows that you don't go over to whatever.com or you're going to get scammed. And it makes me feel really angry because a lot of people are on there trying to get freelance work. And but you do have to have your own due diligence. It's just like going to a flea market or something and you see a bunch of brand new TVs and you wonder, did they fall off a truck? Well, you're not going to buy them, right? So you go over to some of these platforms where people are willing to do something for you for money, check them out and make sure that you can trust them. That's on you. You have no one to blame but yourself if you're dealing with someone who's presenting themselves as shady. And
almost all of those type of platforms have a review system. So if somebody else has hired that person to ghostwrite for them or whatever, even if it's like doing a book cover or whatever it is, they'll leave a review and they'll say, yes, this person did this for me and I was pleased with their work. And they might leave a bad review too, and they get scored based on how many people they've worked for and how many good reviews they've gotten. So, I wouldn't say don't ever hire someone fresh out of the gate. If you're that worried about it, get somebody with experience who has a lot of reviews and actually read the reviews.
Right.
Well, that's really neat because now we can maybe say that we're hoping possibly our next episode or a very someday soon episode is going to be about reviews and how to deal with negative ones and things like that. So that's a pretty good segue, I would say.
All right. I planned that completely.
Yes. I'm especially looking forward to that episode. And the girls know why. So I think Tammy is too. But.
Yeah.
All right. I know we need to transition and move on, but can I just say I'm actually kind of giddy excited about the idea of John Rhonda interviewing people and writing books based on her interviews.
Yeah.
Like, how great would that be?
Yeah.
Like, turning these interviews into like the way only that she can make it like it's a fiction when it's not fiction. Like, I just love it. So there you go. There's your future, Rhonda. I've decided for you.
All right. Thank you.
Isn't that called like creative nonfiction or something?
Yes, it is. Yep.
And that would go right along with your genealogy passion.
Yep. That's the reason for it. I have one thing to add. Okay. So you all know who Sue Grafton is, right?
Yeah.
And that she died last year. Mm-hmm. And she's the one who does the A is for alibi, blah, blah, blah. Well, she got all the way up to Y, the letter Y in her series, right before she died.
Wow.
And her family considered hiring a ghostwriter to finish the series. But then they decided, no, it is going to be the ultimate cliffhanger to not have this series ended. So it'll never be beyond Y.
Wow.
So, and I think there's fan fiction out there that did a Z, but I haven't read any of it.
Wow.
No ghostwriters for them.
All right.
Well, so to wrap things up just real quick, we don't have to agree on whether ghostwriting is moral or not as Christians, whether we should do it or not. But as a group, we all four agree that if you're going to choose that route, make sure you choose wisely and make sure you put it into prayer to make sure that you are representing yourself and your ministry, because our books as Christians represent not only us, but our God as well. Make sure that you put a lot of prayer into that. I think that we would all agree on that.
Yes, and glorify God in whatever you choose.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's move on to our favorite time. I hope it's our listeners' favorite time because it sure is ours. The feeding of the backs. So this is where we share. We had a little 15-minute writing exercise right before we started the podcast. We got 5 random words that we didn't know in advance, and we had 15 minutes to write a story using those words.
Horrible words. They were horrible words this time.
They were horrible words.
Tina tried convincing us to roll the dice again. We're like, no, we have to do these ones. And as soon as she read all of them, we're like, oh.
Right, because there was one word I wasn't sure wasn't actually a word.
I still don't believe it is, but whatever.
It's a controversy. Okay, so do we have a randomizer picked already?
No.
Or should we just go? Well, Jennifer's first on my square of boxes.
All right. I'm up to the challenge.
So we'll go with Jennifer.
All right.
All right. So
decision.
The 5 words that we had were the not real word called non-remittal, the nursery, overcharge, distributor, and relationship. 15 minutes, and I got interrupted because my kids are home today. All right. Elaine fingered the envelope stamped non-remittal. She knew she should open it. It did her no good ignoring all the notices, but honestly, it did her no good opening them either, since she had no way of paying any of them. This one was for Macy's. They overcharge for everything, she reasoned, and slid them under the pile of unopened envelopes.
That's awesome. Sorry.
She tiptoed to the nursery door. The sound of suckling told her that little Frankie would soon awaken, realizing that his pudgy little thumb did not offer what his newborn body was craving at the moment. She sighed and absentmindedly pressed her hand against her full breast. He was the only remnant of her now defunct relationship, a beautiful gift from an otherwise miserable excuse for a marriage. But her sore and cracking nipples argued to the contrary. Frank Sr. had swept out of her life as quickly as he had swept into it, taking not only her heart, but her life savings as well. Luckily, the auto parts store she worked at before meeting Frank had taken her back. Otherwise, she wasn't certain what she would have done. Frank had been a parts distributor, a glorified salesman, really. But when he swept in with his designer suits and Invisalign teeth, he had seemed like a prince to her. So different to the grease monkeys she worked with and serviced every day. But the designer suits were just a mirage. If only she had would have figured that out sooner, her life and her Macy's credit card bill would look a whole lot different now. A knock at the front door made her jump. No one ever visited her. She had no desire to entertain in the tiny rundown excuse for a home. Maybe it was just a neighbor. She slid the chain into place before opening the door. Kevin? She couldn't have been more shocked if it had been Jesus himself. Well, to be honest, Kevin was the closest thing to Jesus Elaine had ever met. A mechanic that frequented her store, he wore his faith like some sort of Boy Scout badge, invisible but prominent across his wide, strong chest. She had never noticed his chest before. 3, 2, 1.
Oh, man.
I don't know whether we're to be relieved or sad that ended right there.
There's a whole lot of chest in this story.
Was there? Yeah, I guess so. She's doing this. Yeah, I guess
that is not a critique. It's an observation. I really like this. How fun. I mean, you've painted a picture for us. And when you said that the swindler husband was gone, I was really hoping this was like a Wild West whatever, and then it unfurled to be a contemporary that I love just as much. Mm-hmm. But I just really, really good. I really like that.
Yeah, so many good details with the other pile of envelopes and the
Invisalign teeth.
Invisalign teeth. Yep.
I even giggled when I typed it. Yeah, when I typed it, I even giggled myself.
Isn't it amazing what your brain will provide you with if you just trust it and just barf the words out? Sometimes it's amazing. Great job.
You know what I like about this one too? Right now it's at 378, and I will be able to finish this up as a short for sure.
Nice.
And maybe like even submit it to like writing shorts or something. But like it'll be a romance, like because that's what I do. But yeah, it'll be in a small package, and I'm not able to do that very often. I'm a little verbose.
That's fun.
We didn't know that about you, Jen.
Yeah, I know it's shocking.
It's so shocking.
Well, thank you for the feedback. That was fun.
All right. Who's next? Any volunteers?
I'll do mine. That's fine.
Okay.
All right, here we go. I rounded the corner and padded down the hallway, shoveling in huge scoops of peach yogurt. It was only my 4th one for the day. I was slowing down. How much longer, babe? I asked as I stepped into the nursery doorway. I immediately regretted the ask as I saw the room was strewn with various and sundry parts of the crib, and Jerry was kneeling in the center of it all over a huge schematic spread over still more baby bed parts. He looked up at me, and I experienced another flash of guilt as I watched the sweat roll down his face. Wiping at it with the tail of his shirt, he tried to make his voice casual. Oh, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes? I stuck my lower lip out. You promised you'd come watch the new Hallmark flick with me 2 yogurts ago. I also promised you I'd have this nursery done before your due date, he said, and returned to the schematic. I moseyed over to where the carton sat and looked at the price tag. You didn't pay that, did you? I asked. What? You didn't pay that price, did you? I told you I had a coupon for buynowbaby.com. Everything is cheaper there because it comes. I cleared my throat and put on my best announcer voice. From the distributor to your door. You told me to handle it. I'm handling it. Obviously, I said, scowling. You shouldn't be in here. Paint fumes. I ignored him. Honestly, I think those baby stores see guys like you coming a mile away and overcharge you. It's like the man's version of that old stereotype of the mechanic ripping off a lady because he's sure she knows nothing whatever about what car stuff should cost. At this rate, we'll go broke preparing for this kid. Yeah. Jerry rose and crossed the room, taking me firmly yet gently by the arm and leading me to the door. We'll start fighting over money. Our relationship will be in shambles. The mortgage people will come after us for non-remittal. We'll have to sell the crib for less than half of what we paid. We may even have to sell the baby. I gestured with my yogurt and my free hand so as to indicate the world-encompassing consequences of him overpaying for the crib. That sounds like a good story, dear, Jerry said once he'd deposited me in the hallway. Why don't you go write it while I take care of this? And with that, he closed the door. I shrugged and stood there, scraping the remaining bits of yogurt from the container. I thought about how hard Jerry was working to do something my dad could have probably handled in 10 minutes. My pregnant eyes found this too much to bear and started leaking out their pregnant tears. Love you, I called through the door. I know.
Aww.
Is this our Jerry?
Yeah, it's our Jerry.
I love these characters. As soon as you said Jerry, I'm like, they're back.
I'm so glad you're going on with this story. I love this this family. Love it.
I love how the yogurt followed
was a character.
The whole story, yeah.
It was like we were able to track time by yogurt. That is so great.
And I can almost taste it.
Yeah, peach.
Yeah,
love
I love
it.
peach yogurt.
Me too.
Yeah,
and I
awesome.
love. And I can totally relate with the whole mechanic issue that you talked about because I just experienced that. You know, my husband works out of state right now and took my car in for an oil change and came out with a $2,000 estimate for all these issues. My husband's back in town this week and it cost us $250, less than $250. And I'm not an idiot about cars. So I just walked out when he handed me I was just like, I gotta go because I knew I didn't have the patience to but I knew what he was charging me was so ridiculous. So yeah, so great, just so real. This is. I think I'm her.
I think it's neat how we both ended up with mechanic stuff in our story. I wonder if that will carry through to the other two. That's interesting.
Yeah, that's really weird. And originally, so nursery could be used 2 different ways. And originally I wanted to use it as a tree farm, but it didn't work out that way as I was writing. So I'm wondering if anyone did. So we'll see as they read.
Ooh, who's next?
You want to go, Tina?
Sure, I'll go. Oh, let me find it here.
Oops.
She lost it already.
I closed the wrong window. Luckily, it wasn't the podcast window that I closed.
Right, I'm very thankful for that because that's happened before.
So real quick, my favorite story about babies and husbands. My husband went to the store after our first child was born. Normal, 8-pound baby. I know some people have smaller babies, but ours was average, right? And so he goes to the store and he's looking and he comes home and he's like, honey, all of the packages said jumbo. And I'm thinking, we don't have a jumbo baby. I love that story. And so I guess he found a worker to help him and she explained, oh, look here, it shows the weight and everything. And then he was able to figure it out. But he likes the story too, so it's okay to tell it.
That's the best.
But we don't
now I have to try to follow that.
All right, we're ready, Bambino. Let's hear it.
Okay, you ready?
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be the worst short story ever, Tina complained. How in the world am I going to write anything not boring using the word non-remittal? I mean, is non-remittal even a word? Not according to Microsoft Word, Jen replied. Well, it is a word according to Google Docs, Jamie chimed in. Rhonda laughed maniacally, wiggling her fingers together like she does when she's feeling evil.
Wait a minute, I almost just spit-taked.
This isn't fiction. You just transcribed our conversation before we started.
Just wait.
All right.
The timer went off, and Tina just sat and stared at her laptop screen, her fingers poised over the home row on the keyboard. These words made her think of a boring business transaction. Distributor, overcharge, relationship. Then there was the word nursery, completely unrelated to the others. Unless, of course, it was the kind of nursery that sold plants.
Oh, no way!
She could write a story about an evil nursery owner who didn't pay his distributor, thereby ruining the man and watching with glee as his life fell to pieces. But she only had 10 minutes left now. That wouldn't work. The word nursery made her think of babies and cribs and pink and blue bedding. Should she write about a baby? Maybe a story about when her kids were small. She missed having a house full of little people sometimes, but not that often. She enjoyed the peace and quiet, if she were honest, and she loved the deep discussions she had with them now that they were adults, except when they felt the need to fill her in on their childhood shenanigans. These incidents almost always took place while she'd been at work, like the time her boys played tag with the BB guns. One of them was always happy to point out where the BB was still stuck in his leg. No, writing a story about babies was out of the question. Unless it was about how happy she was to have moved past that phase in her life. Grandkids. Maybe she should write about grandkids. She only had one, a beautiful girl with honey blonde hair and bright blue eyes. Tina had always sworn she wasn't going to be one of those grandmas that swooned over her grandchildren. In her defense, she had no clue what she was talking about at the time. At that moment, her youngest son's rabbit, Charlie, decided that he was unhappy with the fact she'd set the postcast pieces she'd critiqued on top of his box. To show his displeasure, he decided to eat the papers. Tina was distracted by the munching sounds and looked over to see a big chunk of one of the pages already gone. 3, 2, 1, done. She sighed. I guess writing a podcast piece was just not going to happen this time.
Yay!
That was so good. Oh, my word. Every bit of it.
Yes.
I
would argue that you didn't use the words like you're supposed to, like you just kind of threw them in there, but it was so creative and so good. Yep, I give you credit for it.
Yeah, for sure. They're in there. I think that's what we call creative nonfiction.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, there really wasn't a lot of fiction in there.
Right, because literally that was our conversation beforehand. Was me, Microsoft Word said it's not. Google Docs says it is.
I really love that too, sort of messing around with it's not really messing with the third wall, but it's sort of like you're writing the piece while you're saying that there will be no piece. So it's like a weird thing that you're doing, which I bet you if you tried to do that in some sort of a suspenseful way, that you would also be really good at that, Tina, because you kind of, I don't know, you kind of can do that kind of thing. I love it.
Thank you.
I love the line. I really had no idea what I was talking about.
Yeah. Oh, she
true.
is cute though. Really can't blame you. What a cutie.
And I also used to say, do not call me and ask me to babysit. And now I'm like, calling him. So, do you need a babysitter?
Oh, that's great.
All right. Now it's Rhonda's turn.
All right. I fell for it again. I should not have followed you. All right. Breathe. Just breathe. I try to comfort myself with those words, and it starts to help because it reminds me of a country song I used to love. I mostly loved it because I could sing along with it in my teenage one-trick pony alto. It also helps me block out the gangsterette coming from the chair behind me. Even though I can't stand the music, I do appreciate the ingenuity. I never thought to bring music on the hill back then. He's probably using his phone to play the music, of course. I would have had to use my Walkman and probably would have shattered it falling down the hill. As the lift approaches the top of the hill, my heart tries to escape my chest. It's pure ice right there with a token dusting of snow on it. Why do I let them overcharge me to torture myself? Suckered again. I shoot up the quickest and most sincere prayer I can. Please don't let me break my leg again, at least not today, or anything else. My whole family's here today. I want them to play on different portions of the hill, but they insist on going down with me at least the first run. These tickets were expensive. A vision flashes through my mind. It's an envelope that came in today's mail just before I left this afternoon. Shut-off notice, non-remittal. Thankfully, the lift is now level with the top of the hill and my skis have touched the patch of ice. No time to think of shut-off notices now. I take a deep breath and scooch to the edge of the seat. David places his hand on the small of my back and gently pushes. He knows I'm willing to ride this thing right back around to the base. Even though I'm scared to death, time slows down for me, and the memories of our relationship make me laugh. He used to be less gentle. We used to try to get each other to fall off the lift and create a yard sale of ski equipment at the top of the hill. Thankfully, we're both mature adults now. I slide off the lift and glide to the top of the hill. This one is the nursery for new skiers. Time's up.
Oh, so good. I love how you use nursery. That was so great.
Yeah, that's great.
I love the yard sale. That was great. Awesome.
I felt like I was on a little bit of a mystery in the beginning because I thought at first she was on a plane hearing from the seat behind her. And then I'm like, oh, this is about skiing. And I loved that slow reveal. I really did.
That's what I did too. I wrote skiing with a heart next to it. As soon as I realized I had the same reaction.
Yeah, and then I'm like, oh, she did creative nonfiction too, until David and the shut-off notice showed up, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah. This is my character that I've been, this is the character I'm trying to write all these exercises with, and I'm trying to add more to her character. So I didn't realize she had money problems until I was trying to use the word non-remittal. So maybe that'll stay, maybe it won't.
That's so fun.
That's a really great thing, though, for our listeners to think about, like using these writing activities. We may never use these pieces for anything, but except for to like strengthen our characters and to learn more about our characters, and they may end up in our stories. So that's a really good point to make.
It's really interesting for me to hear that because the last time she was alone on Valentine's Day, and so like because I also am doing the same thing you are, like returning to Jerry and we're writing about these people at different times in their life. Like, I'm really curious now. So like, is this before that lonely Valentine's Day? Is this in the future? Like, I really want to know now. So I'm totally invested and I want to hear more. Awesome job.
Okay. I will not tell you then.
We didn't think you would.
Well, I just want to know, do you know?
I have an idea who David is. Yes.
Wow.
And I know if she was alone before, if this is before or after Valentine's Day.
But she's not going to tell us.
Because, for example, with my situation here, I'm not sure, is this first baby or is this surprise baby? Like, I don't know right now where this is in their timeline. So anyway, not to make it all about me, but I love that you're doing sort of a similar thing that I'm doing. And also I love what you're doing. You're drawing inspiration from your real life, right? Like, so Tina very obviously did, and you did as well. And I think that's great for listeners or watchers to consider that their real life can really appear in their story, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm. All right. Is everybody's back fed?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, thank you.
All right. So I guess that we're done. I want to encourage all of our listeners to head on over to our Patreon page and subscribe so you can listen to the postcast, because that's where we really get kind of wild and crazy. Not too wild and crazy, but wilder and crazier. So until then, may your pen be prolific, may your deadlines be met, and may all of your words honor Christ.
Bye.
Bye.